In a world shadowed by despair and choked by the vices of the affluent, my descent into a living nightmare began. My name is Eric Rowland, a man whose dreams were as modest as his means, suffocated under a mountain of debt. It was in this bleak chapter of my life that I crossed paths with Alexander Dewitt, a man whose fortune was dwarfed only by his malice and depravity. Dewitt, a billionaire with a penchant for the grotesque, presented an offer cloaked in a veneer of salvation. Partake in a hunt on a secluded island where I would be the quarry, survive until dawn, and I would be rewarded with wealth beyond my wildest dreams. Desperation clouded my judgment, and I agreed, stepping into a realm far removed from the grasp of morality and compassion. Dewitt's Island was a dystopian paradise, a land where nature's splendor was overshadowed by the darkness of human perversion. As the sun set, I found myself abandoned in the midst of a dense forest, the domain of the hunters that would soon pursue me. Dewitt and a select group of corrupt aristocrats watched from the comfort of his mansion, their eyes alight with a grotesque anticipation. The ordeal that unfolded was a maelstrom of terror and exhaustion. The forest, a living entity with its own malevolent will, became a labyrinth of fear and paranoia. Shadows morphed into a silence, and every sound seemed to signal impending doom. Reduced to my most primal state, I was driven by the raw instinct to survive, to outlast the darkness and its emissaries. The island's terrain was as merciless as the hunters that stalked me, cliffs that crumbled underfoot, swamps that threatened to swallow me whole. Every step was a dance with death. My pursuers were relentless, their presence a constant specter at my back. The night became a relentless sequence of near capture and desperate escapes, each encounter snapping more of my will to go on. As dawn's first light began to seep through the trees, I emerged, battered and broken, but alive. Guided by the promise of daylight, I made my way back to Dewitt's mansion, a grotesque monument to his narcissism and cruelty. The mansion's interior was an eerie contrast to the night's chaos, a haven of opulent yet sinister calm. Dewitt received me with a cold, predatory smile. His eyes glinted with unspoken malice. He led me to his office, adorned with the spoils of his twisted pursuits, where my reward awaited, a chance to reclaim my life and start anew. But as I reached out to grasp my hard-earned prize, the atmosphere turned heavy with betrayal. In a swift, brutal motion, Dewitt revealed his true intentions. He drew a concealed weapon and shot me, the sound reverberating through the lavish chamber. As I collapsed, the grim realization of my naivety hit me with devastating force. I had been a pawn in a sadistic game, a diversion for a man who saw himself above the laws of man and nature. There was never an intention to reward me, only to toy with my life for his amusement. As I lay bleeding on the marble floor, Dewitt's face loomed over me, a visage devoid of empathy or remorse. He was the embodiment of evil, a predator in the guise of philanthropist. In those final moments, I understood that the true terror was not the hunt itself, but the man who orchestrated it all. As the life ebbed from my body, my mind replayed the harrowing events of the night. The game began just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky's shades of orange and gold, a beautiful yet ominous backdrop to the night's grim proceedings. I remember the chilling sound of the horn that marked the beginning of the hunt. It echoed through the forest, a sinister call to the game. At that moment, I had become less human in the eyes of my hunters, a mere object of their perverse entertainment. The forest, initially a sanctuary of nature, transformed into a treacherous labyrinth. Each step was fraught with danger, from the natural hazards of untamed wilderness to the man-made traps set by Dewitt's men. I recall narrowly avoiding a pitfall camouflaged with foliage, a momentary victory in a night filled with peril. The hunters were skilled, moving through the forest with a silent, deadly grace. They were not just men. They were shadows, specters blending into the night. Several times I found myself holding my breath, hiding mere feet away from them, feeling the palpable thrill of their proximity. As the night wore on, fatigue began to set in, both physical and mental. My body bore cuts and bruises from navigating the rough terrain, and my mind struggled against the onslaught of fear and despair. I remember collapsing beside a brook, the cold water a brief respite. and looking up at the stars, wondering if I would live to see another night. In a moment of respite, I stumbled upon an old cabin hidden beneath the overgrown vines. It was a remnant of time before the island became Dewitt's personal hunting ground. Inside, I found remnants of who I was before. A father, a husband, a man with dreams and aspirations now overshadowed by this relentless struggle for survival. As dawn approached, the realization that I might actually survive began to take hold. I used every ounce of my cunning and strength to evade my pursuers, moving stealthily and using the terrain to my advantage. The thought of seeing my family again, of holding them and leaving this nightmare behind, fueled my determination. But all hopes were dashed in Dewitt's office as I lay there, the cold marble floor sapping the remains of warmth from my body. I felt a profound sense of betrayal. Dewitt stood over me, a man who played God, manipulating lives for his amusement. His laughter, a sound devoid of any humanity, was the last thing I heard. In those final moments, I thought of my wife and daughter, their faces a comforting light in the encroaching darkness. I thought of the life I had fought so hard to return to, now slipping away like sand through my fingers. My story, which began a desperate bid to reclaim my life, was ending here, in this Mausoleum of broken dreams. As the darkness claimed me, Dewitt's Island returned to its deceptive peace, its secrets hidden beneath a canopy of trees. But even in death, I clung to a silver of hope that my story would somehow escape this cursed island, a warning to others lured by the promise of easy salvation. The silence of the mansion was a stark contrast to the chaos of the night. As my vision faded, the lavish opulence of Dewitt's office blurred into the shadows. The lines between hunter and hunted forever blurred in this twisted game of life and death. Thank you for listening to The Hunt. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.